Okay, well, it's great to welcome you, Rodolfo Pellicano from Reis Pellicano, this evening to talk about Portuguese citizenship, who can apply, when to do it, and how to do it. Rodolfo, good to see you.
Well, not to see me, right?
Good to hear you, at least.
Well, at least my picture is up there, I think. So for those that don't know me in person or haven't seen me in video, there's a very bad picture there, but anyway, it's there. Again, my apologies for this tech problem. Let's try to gain a little bit of the time that we have lost here.
Not a problem.
Okay, so Astrid, could you please go to the next one? This is just an introduction of the law firm, which is Reis Pellicano. We do a lot of things. You guys will probably already know us. And today I'm going to speak a little bit about the Portuguese citizenship. Obviously, I will not be able to speak about all the aspects of the Portuguese citizenship, especially because the law is very extensive. But I selected some main topics. I think the ones that are the most interesting for this kind of public. So yeah, Portuguese citizenship. It's basically there are two ways that we can consider the Portuguese citizenship, which is by the origin and by it's the derivative way. Oops, now I have a yeah. The derivative way. The origin one is the one that it's related to blood, if you have ancestors, or by territory, if you are, for example, born in Portugal. And the derivative, the acquisition is through the naturalization, which is basically a legal fact that occurs and grants you the right to request the citizenship. For example, if you live in Portugal in a residence permit. So these are the two possible ways, paths, let's put it this way, that a foreigner can obtain the Portuguese citizenship in Portugal. Okay, so can we go ahead, Astrid, please? Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the two main, I think the most interesting ones for this public in relation to the attribution, which is the one for the origin, the one that you have ascendants or you are born in Portugal. So a foreigner that wants to become a Portuguese citizen and they have, for example, a mother or a father that were Portuguese, even though they if they are of age already, they need to expressly manifest their wish to become Portuguese. And this is done when we fill up the forms and the paperwork that's being prepared to submit the request. Over there's a part where expressly the applicant says that he wants to become a Portuguese citizen. Okay. This case is for those that, as it's written there, the mother or the father are Portuguese citizens and were born abroad. And if they decide to register their birth in Portugal at a civil registry period and then declare their wish, we can process the whole application, which is currently taking a while, but it's most likely that this person will be accepted and it will be approved. The other case, number two, it's instead of your mother or your father being Portuguese, you have ancestors like grandparents or even great-grandparents. This is a little bit more difficult in relation to paperwork because we need to establish all the connections between all the family members from, let's say you go from your great-grandfather, then to the grandparents, and then to the father and mother, and then to the applicant. So it's a long process of paperwork, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of name checking, birth dates and marriage dates, and everything needs to make perfect sense so that we can demonstrate that applicant is really a great son or a grandson of that person, that Portuguese citizen. Okay, and again, this applicant will need to declare that he wishes to become a Portuguese citizen. Okay, but in these cases, because it's not the father or the mother, it's far away great grandfather or grandfather, In these cases, there need to be to demonstrate a connection with the Portuguese community. Okay. Can you show the next one, please, Astrid? Yeah. So going on to I gave two examples on the previous slide. I'm going to go through these two examples more in depth here. So the number one, which is for those that the father or the mother were Portuguese citizens and they expressed their wish to become Portuguese and register their birth in the Portuguese civil registry. The important thing is that the parenthood needs to be established while they were minors. If it cannot be when they are already grown-ups of age already. So, for example, we had a case in the office that the applicant she had a delayed return of birth certificate. Actually, she declared her birth already grown up as an adult, and this was not accepted by the registry here for the Portuguese citizenship. So in these cases, because the parenthood was not established according to the Portuguese law, while this person was a minor, the only way out is to go back and amend all documentations, or to have, if the parents of that applicant are alive, for them to expressly declare there's a bureaucracy of paperwork that they will declare that they are the parents of that son, and then they recognize that person as being their son, which was born during their marriage. And there's a big path that we need to follow in order to prove that this parenthood was established. This is very interesting and very unusual for a majority of us of foreigners, because I mean, clients just come up and say, "Look, oh, he's my son. I mean, what's the doubt?" There's no doubt there. But according to the Portuguese law, and this will depend on when the person was born, because the civil code applicable for that case specific will be the civil code of the time that that person was born. And in Portugal, the civil code has changed many times already. So according to the law of that time, we will need to see if that person qualifies being with the parenthood duly established as per the Portuguese requirements in the Portuguese law. Okay. Next one, please, Astrid. On the second case of the attribution, which was the ones for if your great grandparents, your grandparents are the Portuguese citizens, and I mentioned 2 slides ago, I mentioned that not only declaring your wish to become Portuguese, you also need to demonstrate that you have a connection with the Portuguese community. And this is very complicated sometimes, because there are three basic things that needs to be done. The first one is unless you are from a native Portuguese speaking country, for example, Brazil, Angola, Mozambique, these kind of places. If you are from a English speaking country, for example, you will need to present a certificate that you have proficiency in Portuguese, A2 level. This is usually done by a course called CIPO, which is a CIPO test. It's by a Portuguese university. But there are other methods to prove this Portuguese language test. Perhaps one day we can have an explanation just for all different allowed courses and institutions for this. Second one, conviction of a crime. And this is a crime that's punishable under the Portuguese law. So, for example, you have a record on your criminal record, but is a crime that it's not foreseen by the Portuguese law. This should not be considered. But if it is foreseen in the Portuguese law, yes, it's considered, and then you cannot have been sentenced to a 3-year or more prison sentence. After this is a final judgment, of course. If you still have a recourse, this is not final, and then there's a chance there. But if it is a final judgment and you have been convicted for a prison sentence of 3 or more years, then for sure your submission will not be accepted. And the third thing is you need to be you cannot be a danger to a threat to the national security or defense. And this is totally discretionary. The government is the one evaluating this submission, and the government is the one who will make this decision based on the information on the application and everything that they can search through the entities, police, immigration entities, etc. So this is the way they will verify this. Next one, please, Astrid. Then, if you remember on the first slide, I said there were two paths, one by the origin and the second one by the derivative. The derivative is the one that we usually see more nowadays here because of the amount of foreigners that have migrated to Portugal. They have been living here for a while now, for many years. And actually many families make the decision to move to Portugal with the main purpose to eventually in the future to obtain the citizenship. And this is done. There's several ways here. I will explain the first two ones because I think the two ones are the main ones for us, but let me go through all of them. So the first one, you need to have a legal residence in Portugal for 5 years at the time of the request, cannot be earlier. The second one is if you are a minor and you were born in Portugal, your parents are foreigners, but at the time of the request, one of your parents had a residence permit here for 5 years, already 5 years completed, you will be able to request your citizenship. If one of your parents has legal residence in Portugal, and this is interesting here because you see it's a little bit different from A and B here. A said the parent has residence of any kind for the 5 years prior to the request. And B says one of the parents has legal residence in Portugal. The difference, this is from the last change in the law. There were many people in Portugal that had moved to Portugal as tourists. They had entered Portugal as tourists. And you all are aware of the delays that at that time was CEF, now it's AIMA. The delays to have the duly paperwork evaluated and approved to have a residence permit issued. In the past, the wording of the law would say only those that have legal residence. But the government understood that this was not fair to all the people, all the foreigners that were here, and they changed the law and said that either you have a legal residence in Portugal, which is the residence permit, or at least the process ongoing, submitted everything, or if any of the parents had a 5 years residence, regardless if it was a legal residence, I mean a legal residence in the aspect of having the residence permit issued, obviously not a illegal residence, but for example, someone that submitted an expression of interest or someone that applied for a golden visa and the authorities are taking 1, 2, 3 years to evaluate the request, now these years are considered. So this is why it's the 5 years that they consider, not mentioning the legal residence. And finally, if there's a minor, the minor has attended the school for at least 1 year in Portugal, inside Portugal, okay? Then there's another possibility if a child or a young person, a minor, it's taken in by a public or private institution, like how do you say in English is
Or adopted.
help me here, Carl, for a name. It's not a schooling.
An orphanage, and it be adopted
Perhaps an orphanage, for example. Yes, this person is this young person is eligible for the citizenship as well. The other one, if you are a stateless person, you don't have a citizenship anymore. But in the past, you had a Portuguese nationality in the past. So you were a Portuguese citizen once. You decide to change your citizenship, and you did abandon the Portuguese one, and you got another one. but then something happened during your life and you lost this new one, you lost for any reason, then you are allowed to request back the Portuguese one, which was probably your citizenship by origin. Okay. And then the next one is if you are born in Portugal, uh, being a child of a foreign residence, and this person that you're born in child stays in Portugal 5 years before the request. This is a difference if the parents, for example, leave Portugal for any reason, the parents do not fulfill the requirements on B, but the applicant stayed in Portugal. So this person will have the right to request after 5 years. Okay. F, not being stateless and having previously held Portuguese nationality. Yeah, I already mentioned this, sorry. Being descendant of origin Portuguese, being a member of a community Portuguese ancestry, and being foreigner who has already provided and may come to provide relevant service to the Portuguese states. So if one of these items in F are evidential, you also have the right to request the citizenship. I haven't seen many of these cases. These are not normal. Very few people go in this direction.
Sounds like maybe a footballer, Rodolfo.
Sorry, excuse me, Carl.
Sounds like a footballer could get citizenship on that last clause there.
Exactly.
Right.
So then we have G, Carl, which is very common, this one. It was more common before the change in the law, which are the Sephardic Jews. Probably all of you have heard of these processes. So for these, the applicant needs first to demonstrate that he has a lineage. He was born in a family which is a Sephardic Jew, and he will show the whole process before the Sephardic, the Israeli community in Portugal. There will be issued a document, a certificate showing that that person really is a descendant of a Sephardic Jew family. And then only after this process is completed, then the document is issued, then we will be able to apply for the Portuguese citizenship. And this was the simple process that the previous law allowed us to follow. Right now, there was a change. And you not only you have to demonstrate that you have your Sephardic Jew lineage, but you have to have lived in Portugal for at least 3 years. Many ask, oh, if I own a property, would this be possible? No, you need really to live in Portugal. So right now, if we have a person who is a Sephardic Jew descendant and has never lived in Portugal, this person should apply to demonstrate that they have the Sephardic Jew descendants before the Israeli community, and they should move to Portugal and live in Portugal for 3 years. Only after that, they would be eligible to apply. Okay. H, being an ascendant of an original Portuguese citizen residing in Portugal for 5 years with established parentage at the time of the birth. So you are a parent, you're not a Portuguese, you're a foreigner, but your kid, your son, is a Portuguese citizen by origin. He probably that first case that I mentioned when the person is born in Portugal, and then the parents, after living in Portugal 5 years, they will, as long as they were the parenthood, according to Portuguese law, was established at the birth of that infant. The parents will be able, on the reverse case, they will be able to request the citizenship. This is interesting because there are families that actually move to certain countries to have their babies there so that that baby can acquire the citizenship. But Portugal has, like in the Constitution of Portugal, they have one of the main rules is that the family must stay together. The family must be considered a unit. So if the son or the daughter has the Portuguese citizenship, then the parents must be allowed a way, a path to acquire the same and the citizenship, the Portuguese citizen as well, so that that unit is not like, oh, my parents are just a certain citizenship and the kid is a Portuguese citizenship, and there's something that's not connecting there. So there's not more a unit over there. So this is this way. And the other way, the last one, is the path for former colonies. Portugal in the 1500s, etc. They were very explorers and they have many colonies around the world. Brazil was one, for example, and there's in Angola and in many other places. So if you are a former colony, even in, for example, in India, you have from Macau, you have other places. There's a special path. It's very, very bureaucratic. People from Goa in India, they also can. It's very, very difficult to have the documentation of these ancestors, but this is another way it's possible. So these are all the possibilities. I will now try to explain the A and B, which are the main ones, I think, for this public. Can you go for the next one, Astrid, please? Okay. So having legal residence for 5 years at the time of the request. This is what I was mentioning, that majority of the foreigners have this as the main purpose when they consider moving to Portugal. And why is this? Many, for example, you have small children, Americans especially, and I know I have many Americans in the public. University education in the United States, it's very, very expensive. It's probably one of the most expensive in the world. And in Europe, universities, they have a very, very good quality. So many families decide to move to Portugal as an investment for their kids, because once they have the Portuguese passport, they will be eligible to apply for universities throughout the whole Europe. I'll give my example. My son right now studies in the Netherlands, and the fees that I pay for him per year as a European Union citizen is something that we just can't believe. And then this is one of the reasons that many families make this move as targeting a better future for their kids. So the Portuguese government grants the Portuguese nationality by naturalization to foreigners who cumulatively meet the following requirements. All of them. It's not one or the other. You need to have all of them. First one, you need to be of legal age or emancipated. So after 5 years of residence, if your son is still a minor, he cannot request the citizenship. Not yet. He will need to wait until he is of age, of legal age, or he will need to wait until his parents obtain their citizenship, and after that, obtain through his parents. Because there's an article in the law that allows minors that have the parents that have acquired the Portuguese citizen, they can go through there and apply as well. Second, they also need to be legally residing in Portugal for at least 5 years. They have having sufficient knowledge of the Portuguese language, again, except if you are from a country with the Portuguese main language, like Portugal, like Angola, Brazil, Mozambique, etc. And again, it comes the other two that we already mentioned in the other case of attribution, now not having been convicted for a crime of more than 3 years and not constituting danger or threat of violent crimes, terrorism, highly organized crime, this kind of things. So these two, the D and E, this will apply for all kinds of citizenship requests. These will be everywhere. The other ones that will vary from type to type. And I made an important note at the end there, because 5 years, let's say you're living in Portugal for 4 years, and for whatever reason you need to move from Portugal, you need to go away, and then you say, "Oh my God, there's only 1 year now. I should live here, and I would be eligible for the Portuguese citizen. Now I need to go. All my plans went through the drain. What should I do?" Actually, what the law says is that you need to demonstrate that you have 5 years of residence on the previous 15-year interval. So let's say I lived here from 2020 to 2024, 4 years. I need to go away. And I stay away 25 and 26. And then I come back on 27. The 4 years that I had, they will be considered. So again, 1 year more or 1.5 year more, the most, you will be completing your 5 years requirement and you will be eligible to apply. This is very important. Not many people know this. And this may affect the plan of a family drastically. People lose opportunities or decide to stay for whatever reason because they don't know that they have this possibility to, like, say, suspending, let's put it this way, suspending the counting of the 5 years and taking it back a little bit ahead. I think this is something that everybody should have in mind. And if you need explanation of the details of how this is counted, we'll be glad to provide this in a future connection. Can we go to the next one, Astrid, please? Then we go for the second one with the acquisition again, which is article number 2 of Article 6. It's a minor that is born in Portugal. The parents are foreigners, but at the time of the request, at the time of the application, the parent has had a residence for any kind for the 5 years prior to the request, or one of the parents had legal residence in Portugal, and the minor has attended, or the minor has attended at least 1 year of schooling. So this is the and all these citizenships it's a discretionary for unless it's for the attribution, which is inheritance because your parent or your grandparent, these are Portuguese citizens, and then you have a blood right. When we're talking about acquisition, whenever we're talking about acquisition, is the government that decides. It's the government who makes the final decision if that application will be granted or not. Okay, so if one of the parents has resided in Portugal, and this is regardless, as I mentioned before already, regardless of the title, I mean, a residence permit duly issued, a golden visa, expression of interest, but on any of these process it's being processed. This time will be considered, but this has to be immediately preceding the request, the application. Okay. Then number B, if one of the parents has legal residence in the national territory, is the case of that I mentioned that the law changed to give the right for those that have not only the residence card issued, the proper documentation, or the application process ongoing, but properly ongoing, duly submitted with evidences of that. Oh, Rodolfo, what would be an evidence that I have submitted my expression of interest? So when you do this at the past SAF portal, now IMA, well, right now no, because the expression doesn't exist more, but the process are still there. You would need to provide the date of submission of your process. There's an evidence that, and that date, when the process was submitted and received by the authority, that was the date that shall be considered for the citizenship in the future. So if you have a golden visa, for example, the golden visa, there is a first moment where you submit the documents. The second moment is the payment of the fee for the authority to review the documents. At that moment, this is the legal moment where that application is considered. So you pay the first initial fee. From that time onwards, even if the authority takes, let's say, 2 years, which is currently is what's happening, almost 3 years to evaluate that documentation, those years are being considered for the citizenship request. Okay. And if the minor has attended in Portugal at least 1 year of preschooling or basic secondary schooling, or even a professional schooling as a minor, a technical school, for example, then this kid would be eligible also in the future to apply for the citizenship based on this Article 2. Okay. Can we go to the next one, Astrid? Yeah, so I think I was too fast because I was late at the beginning, but I think we have already many questions here on the chat. So perhaps, Astrid, I don't know how you want to deal, or
I'll pick these up,
or
Rodolfo. Let's
I'll
go
take
through.
the questions and I'll be glad to go answering. We have plenty of time to answer all of them.
Yep, no worries. Okay, that's great. Maybe we could have that slide on a little bit longer for your details. There. Oh, so it was Astrid, isn't it? Not you, Rodolfo. But yeah, that last slide would be great on the screen. There was an earlier question that I'm sure you can deal with. It's not directly related to citizenship, but there was a question: is it possible to go to Portugal on a tourist visa and apply for the D7 while I'm there? You have to apply for the visas in your own country, don't you, Rodolfo?
Correct. That's correct, Carl. You cannot apply for any residence visa at all in Portugal. All residence visas need to be applied in your home country or at the country that you have legal residence. You are an American citizen, but you legally live in Chile. You will be able to apply in Chile for your D7 to come to Portugal. In
Okay.
Portugal, you cannot do so. The only the only, let's say, visa that it's actually not a visa, it's the golden visa. The
Hmm.
golden visa has a popular name as golden visa, but it's actually not a visa at all. It is a direct residence permit based on investment. Then you from home, we apply here in Portugal, but you don't come to Portugal. You will only come when the process is approved to collect your biometrics. Other than that, you always need to apply at your home country or your country of legal residency.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Not so much a question from Diana, but a great testimonial. Hi, Rodolfo. I got to give a giant shout out of thanks to you and your colleague Melanie. Oh, sorry, Melaine Helvig, for all your advice and hard work in getting my nationality application in good order and submitted. My
Thank
case
you.
has some unique complexities, and it has been especially reassuring to me to be receiving excellent advice and professional support. And then, yeah, I'm confident it's the best likelihood of getting approved eventually, and far more likely than if I tried to do all the work on it on my own. Thank you, Diana, for that, and a nice vote of confidence for you and your company there, Reis Pellicano, Rodolfo.
Thank
So,
you.
Lisa, when does the official clock start for declaring time in the country under Article 6? Is it the date of arrival in the country? Is it the effective date on the first temporary residence card? How does one provide proof of 5-year residency when applying for citizenship by naturalization? Great question to Lisa.
Yeah, so I mentioned this on the presentation, but let's go back there. So in the past, they were very strict on the counting based on the first issuance of your residence permit card. So we would consider the first card, when the date that it comes on the card, printed on the card, that was the date that we should consider for the 5 year. Nowadays, because of the inefficiency of the bodies, the entities, and they have acknowledged that, they have been considering the time of the legal application. As I mentioned during the presentation, a good example is the golden visas.
Mhm.
When we pay the fee back in for the analysis, that is the time when they will start to counting the 5 year, even if it takes 2 to 3 years to have your residence permit, the first one, issued. On the other processes, it's basically the same thing. There will be some legal moment, some legal action that will mark the time, and that time onwards will be considered even if your residence permit card is not issued. This is the current understanding.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Good question from Pedro. If I get Portuguese citizenship, can my children get citizenship through me, even if they live in another country?
Yes, even if they live in another country, they are. Once you become Portuguese, well, it will depend here. It would depend on the way if you're getting from the acquisition or the attribution. If it is
Yeah.
an attribution, I mean, you are Portuguese born in Portugal, this will always follow your bloodline. Your children, your grandchildren, they will always be. If you have acquired in Portugal through naturalization, let's say 5 years of residence, and you got this one, this will not pass straight to your kids. Your kids need to live in Portugal also to get that one.
Yeah, I think it's acquisition we're talking about there. Thanks for the clarification on that, Rodolfo. I have no problem getting my language certificate, says Lisa, but it would be unlikely my husband would complete this. Would this mean I could not apply, that I could apply for residency, but he would not? Yeah, the A2 is absolutely hard and fast, isn't it? You've got to have that language qualification.
Yes, you do. You need to get that. So in this case, yes, you would have yours, but your husband will not get his. He would
Okay.
need to put some effort there and learn a little bit English.
Yes. Yeah, and interestingly, when I've spoken to Daniel before about this, there has been question marks about it. Will this always be a requirement? Daniel thinks it should be a requirement and should stay so. There was talk also of language exclusions, wasn't there, being of a certain age? What's your view on that personally, Rodolfo? That this should stay the A2
I,
qualification?
I think it will stay and it should stay.
Okay, there you go. All
Yeah,
right. Thank you very
there are. If you consider this, some people say, "Oh, this is too much." We have countries throughout the world that not only the language you have to learn, but you need to learn history of the country. You need
right.
to learn geography of the country. There are other things that you need to demonstrate before your citizenship is approved worldwide, you
Yes.
know?
Yep, absolutely. And I'll check with you as we've talked in the past with Daniel about this, but it's actually not there's no great ceremony either, is there, in Portugal when you get your citizenship? It's just a letter to say here it is. There's
Correct.
you don't go
Correct.
and swear allegiance or anything like that.
No, correct. It's just paperwork.
Yeah.
You get a document that will say that you have been approved and your citizenship has been approved. You will not need to go and swear the flag or nothing like that.
Okay, all right. José Cruz, I received my A1, A2 Portuguese language diploma this past weekend. Well done, José Cruz. Just in time for your celebration at Torres Vedras, by the sounds of it. I took Portuguese Língua de Acolhimento courses 2 times a week from September of 23 through to June 24. The entire course cost €14. So it is well supported, isn't it, Rodolfo, by the government, plus another €35 for 2 course books. So it's not going to break the bank. But we're doing it that way. You do have quite a lot of application and being in school and applying yourself. It's quite a big commitment, but that's a good way to do it. And Diana, thank you for giving us the link to the Instituto Camões there, which has been saved by people. That's really helpful, both of you, Diana and Jose there. Tony has a question, Rodolfo. Paperwork.
Sorry, Carl, and just
Go on.
a comment there.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's not very expensive, the test. And actually the A2 level is not very, very difficult, guys.
Mhm.
It's a matter of just putting a little bit of effort. It could be even worse, you have a B level or something like this. So it's really, really achievable.
Okay. Tony says paperwork has been in Registro Centrais for about 2 years. Parents are Portuguese. I was born in Mozambique in the 60s. Is there any way to check my status? And is this wait time normal? Denise has been in a similar situation. I find there is no feedback forthcoming from the local South African agents. I have a registration number and that's it. Don't hear anything except no progress. Is there any way people can check, Rodolfo?
The only way to check is there's a access code that each process should have, and if you don't have yours, you need to seek who made the application for you because you should have one, and you check this online. I understand it's really, really, really very much frustrating.
Yeah.
And I always advise my clients, please don't go and check every month because you'll be very angry with me. But it's frustrating for us as well because
Of course
in
it
the
is.
past, Carl, let's say 8 years from now, 10 years from now, backward, then in the past, um, when you submitted the Portuguese application, it would be reviewed and approved within 6 months, really
Wow.
quickly.
Yeah.
But suddenly we had a huge increase,
Yes.
and we also had those problems of COVID that closed everything and everything. So Portugal is not only very bureaucratic, but the public services, they don't have enough staffing.
Yeah.
So they just can't manage with the increase of requests. And even worse, they can't manage the backlog that they created during the COVID pandemic. So it
Yes.
is true, it's taking not 2 years, it's taking around 3 years currently.
Hmm. Okay.
We have seen some tentative movements from them to improve this. For example, in we are in 2025, it was in 2023, I think, 22, 23, they implemented a new platform for lawyers, exclusive for lawyers and solicitors, where the process is totally scanned by us and submitted online by us. And we have the duty to keep the original paperwork for 10 years in our office. If they have any doubts, they will request these documents and we will send to them. But this took from them the burden to receive a lot of paper, scan one by one, and do everything. So this we expect to have a better to have the speeding the whole processes, but we
Hmm.
still haven't seen this happen very much. A few type of process we have seen improvements, but others that we have so many applicants, it's still unfortunately taking a lot of time. And
Okay.
just
All
to be
right.
patient, need to be patient.
Understood. So that was for Tony and Denise there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you one more question, but we will get to all the other
Yeah, sure.
more complex and personal questions after the recording. It's good to be a member of Expats Portugal Premium member here, so you can be here and ask the questions. And then, of course, you can be in a session with the our guest speakers each week to ask them more personal questions when we finish recording. So sign up at expatsportugal.com. That last question, which is a good general one, Leah, is thank you for this. Allah, if a U.S. citizen obtains Portuguese citizenship, do they lose some benefits of the US tax treaty? For example, state government pensions not being subject to tax in Portugal. Have you met?
This is a very good question, actually. Can you please repeat it, Carl, again?
Yes, yeah, and we can run this past Pedro Franco if it should he be joining us on the town hall session. But from Leia here, where was that? Yeah, if a US citizen obtains Portuguese citizenship,
Mhm.
do they lose some benefits of the US tax treaty? For example, state government pensions not being subject to tax in Portugal. Is that more of a finance question than a
Well,
citizenship
this
one?
is this is totally tax question, but I will give you my impression here. So,
Okay.
um, because you, especially U.S. citizens, let's say a specific how do you say a specific case that an American wherever they establish their tax residence worldwide, anywhere, it doesn't really matter because in the US, United States is one of the only countries that will keep on collecting taxes there. If you have your
Yes.
tax domicile in Portugal, regardless of that, the United States will continue taxing there. And
Yes.
that's why we have the double taxation agreement in place.
Okay.
However, this covers very well if you are an American living abroad and you pay taxes in Portugal. The taxes that you pay here there will be an offset with the taxes paid back in the US.
Yes.
But when
Because
you
you don't,
become a, but when you
unless you
be,
relinquish it, you remain a.
unless you relinquish, correct. You're right. Yes, correct. And I only had one case, Carl, until today. American citizen came to me to get his Portuguese citizenship, and from the beginning, from the start, he said, "As soon as this is approved, I will relinquish my American one." I had never seen that one.
No,
Yeah,
no one thought we'd hear that.
yeah.
Right.
So, but anyhow, so when you become a Portuguese citizen, you do not, unless you relinquish your American citizenship, if you keep both, as the question is, this will be, I don't think it will change the benefits that you have unless your tax situation in Portugal doesn't change. Because um, once you have your tax domicile in Portugal set, and you have your because the double taxation agreement doesn't say about nationality of the individual. It says, if I'm not wrong, and I'm going on Pedro's side, it says about where you have your residence established. So if you are a resident in Portugal, you have double nationality, but you're a resident in Portugal, it's one rule on the double taxation agreement, and your income coming from the US. But if you're a resident in the US and you have your income coming from Portugal, the rule changed there. So this is something actually Pedro should dig into. This is my feeling of how I see this.
Very good. Okay, thanks, Rodolfo. And just finally, yeah, Diana's saying if our citizenship is approved, I think Expats Portugal will find a way for us to celebrate. Absolutely. We should acknowledge all of these great milestones at our weekends, the residential weekends. So come along, Diana. I'd definitely like to raise a glass, any excuse, but I mean, especially for a great occasion like that, becoming a citizen in Portugal. Rodolfo, great job. This is a complex subject with lots of fine detail. So there will be more questions about the complexities and personal circumstances after pausing the recording here. But thanks just for the time being. Thank you very much for your presentation so far.
Yeah, thank you.
And you can find Rodolfo in the Expats Portugal business directory. Let me pause it there.